President Rodriguez. Vice President Thomas. Member Martinez. Member John. And Member Gutierrez's absence.
Go to the, sorry, that's better. We go to the approval of the agenda. Superintendent, any changes aboard? No changes? Okay, I need a motion. I'm not in right now, so do it, sway hands. Approval of the agenda. Who makes the motion? I move that we approve the agenda. Member Thomas moves. Member
I second.
Martinez seconds, please vote. Okay, 4 ayes. Member Gutierrez not here. So our study session this afternoon is on Latinx Summit Workshop. And before we go to that, is there anybody that would like to address from the public the study session before we move to the study session? Okay, seeing none, Superintendent?
I believe the committee wants us to join them.
Sure, that's fine. Love to.
Bring a pencil.
Sí se puede.
And there is some drinks down here in the cooler. Cold water or...
Oh,
Thank you. Hola. Bien, bien, gracias a Dios. ¿Cómo estás? Bien. Gracias. Hola. ¿Y usted? Bueno. Gracias a Dios por el día tan bueno.
ay, sí, de verdad. It's in there. Nos hace falta Daisy.
AC? We don't have any money for AC. We're broke.
Yeah.
I'm only kidding.
I was just gonna, otherwise I was gonna have to, thank you.
We're
Okay,
showing.
I'll take that one.
How do we, is the AC going or?
Who's here?
have AC in
Where's Bones?
Oh, the natural AC. Okay, good.
I'm here. ¿Quién está aquí? ¿Nadie? Oh, Diana? Okay, why don't you sit here and I'll sit on that side. Right, you know.
Are we going to be looking, vamos a ver algo?
We're going to do an activity, but nothing's on the screen.
Okay, all right, so then we don't.
Go ahead and sit there. I'll move over here. Oh, the PowerPoint's on the screen, but it'll also be up on the audience.
Thank you. We've been waiting for this since we went to that wonderful summit. And
But the last order is over here.
yeah, I know. Last week was a busy week for us. Superintendent, you want to drive it? Oh, Miss Larson's going to drive it. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I have
Yes.
a collection of glasses here because I don't know which one will work.
Put them both on.
A ver,
A la misma vez.
I know when I get dizzy. Hold on one second, please.
Así que lo hacen los chilenos, ¿no?
All right. It's big enough.
Smart.
I thought it would be better, bigger, but, okay. Good evening, board members, superintendent, staff, and members of the community. I am Vivian Larson, resident of Newark, and I'm here today as a community member and not representing any other institution. We are the Latinx Summit Committee, and I would like to introduce some of the members that are here today. Lidia Arroyo, Adriana Lopez, Veronica Torres, Sandra Cunha, and Zoila Avila, that is over there. And we are here today to provide with you a few key priorities from the Latinx Summit findings and come to an agreement on how to move forward. First of all, we want to be clear on the motives for organizing a district-wide Latinx Summit. Parents, students, and community were expressing loud and clear the necessity to be heard, to resolve problems, and to make the Board of Education aware and responsive of the numerous challenges the students and parents face. The committee organized the Latinx Summit with the intention of giving parents and students a well-run and safe platform for them to speak out and propose solutions. This summit was run by bilingual volunteers who have experience in facilitating group activities and bilingual scribes who recorded participants' comments. We have no intention for this summit to be an exercise in community engagement, but we want the board to hear the voices of the Latinx community. The main and most concern is to improve and enhance our Latinx students' academic outcomes at all levels, K-12. The Latinx population at Newark Unified School District is at 53.8%. We cannot rely anymore on a few programs that are in a few schools that serve a few students. In assessing the needs of the parents in regards to supporting the success of their children, there is a need to develop a system-wide parent education initiative in many areas and at all levels. Just to name a few, parents need to know the process to participate in school decision-making committees to bring equity to this participation, like LCAP, ELAC, School Site Council, and all the other committees. Students' report cards and grade recovery. They need to familiarize with high school student transcript and its implication on the student's success or challenges, financial aid, college admission, and all the processes where parents are involved. At the same time, there is a great urgency that has been expressed to develop an effective means of communication at all schools so parents are adequately informed in all matters related to the schools and their children. They cannot rely on the goodwill of another volunteer parent or a classroom aide to get information, sometimes unreliable, on schools. And briefly, there is a need to invest in a strong and positive community service customer service training at all schools, at all levels, and come to the realization that 53.8% of the school population is Latinx. Biased and different forms of discrimination should not happen, and we need to build together an authentic school climate and appreciation of all students, parents, and culture. Exclusion practices do not bring solutions or help students succeed. We want to make sure that the Board of Education develops policies and gives direction to the district superintendent to develop a strategic plan on Latinx students with measurable action plans to reduce achievement and opportunity gaps, systemic barriers, the lack of student guidance, and provide supportive environments for student successful outcomes. Thank you. At this point, I would like to ask Superintendent Sanchez to provide the data that supports vital change, and we want to thank him for his collaboration and transparency in making this data available to us. So we asked him to do this part for us.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just go through the data from here. Many of you have seen this in different sections. I know most of you attended the summit, but I want to walk through the data and just kind of start with the picture as it is in California. Nearly 40% of California's population is Latinx. 15 million people in California are Latinx. By the year 2060, it will represent 45% of the population. 54% of the students enrolled in K-12 public education are Latinx. Some good news, more are graduating from high school and more are prepared for college. More are transferring from community college to public four-year university. It is taking less time for students to complete university degrees. Bad news, students who are graduating at a much lower percentage than other races among Latinos, Latinx. Less students are completing four-year degrees. Completion gap is getting bigger for Latinx as compared to Anglo students. And Latinx are not well represented in leadership at student, college, and governmental level. Now we're going to take a look at the Newark Unified demographics. As you see, Latinx represents 53.8% of the population, followed by the next largest, which would be Asian at 14%, Anglo at 13%. Based on the 2018-19 overall SBAC results, 33% of students met or exceeded language arts in the language arts standards. That's about out of every 3 students are meeting or exceeding the standards. In math, 1 out of every 3 students, about 23%, are meeting or exceeding the standard. Oh, sorry, 1 out of 4, thank you. That's probably a typo, thank you. And then again, 1 out of 4 has had some chronically absent issues.
No, when you see the two numbers,
Oh,
they
the
don't
two
match.
numbers, 27 or 22.7.
Oh. Yeah.
So as far as A through G preparation, 30.6% less than, which is less than 1 in 3, are prepared A through G of Latino students, Latinx students. Graduation rate has increased about 6.1% to 87.2. Suspension rate is holding close to 5%. The percentage of students passing AP exams, just a little bit over 1 out of 2 or half of the students are passing the AP test exam. 17-18 SBAC results in language arts, 11th grade, 40% met or exceeded, which is about 2 out of 5 students. That means 60% are not meeting or exceeding that standard. In mathematics, the most glaring area, and I think this drives part of why we moved into Big Ideas Math, 8% met or exceeded, less than 1 out of 10 students is meeting the standards in mathematics in the 11th grade SBAC. Hold on, was that, wait, I think I had the grade wrong. That was 3 through 6, but why was those are mixed, so I'm gonna have to correct that, I apologize. Let's look at 7th and 8th grade, language arts, 31% met or exceeded, math, 23% met or exceeded. Graduates meeting UC CSU requirements, you see the 3 largest groups that are meeting or exceeding, and still only at a relatively low rate of half or less than half, are Asian, Filipino, and Anglo, with African American and Hispanic being some of the lowest, but still with Hispanic being one of the largest groups. So this is another data that I compiled. Larry and I have been working on this report to try to figure out off track, and I want to define off track for you before I share the data. A student's not having the credits that they should have at the end of the semester 1. That's really how we defined and pulled this data. For example, a 10th grade student should have 90 completed credits by the end of semester 1 in order to be considered on track. So for the purposes of this report, we only use total credits and not credit requirements by subject area. So just to get an idea of what we're looking like. This sheet's somewhat complex, but it does show you in the first column that's all listed as all students, and this is after semester 1 for 18-19 school year. In 9th grade, approximately 321 students are on track, with 91 being off track. And that first column includes special ed and ELD. 10th grade, 319 are on track, 135 are off track, 277 in 11th grade are on track, 128 are off track, 12th grade, 314 are on track, 70 are off track. So if you total those numbers at the bottom, of the total number of students at the high school, approximately 1,231 are on track, 424 would be off track. So just for the sake of conversation, if we took those numbers and divided it by the average staffing ratio, that would mean that the 1231 would be equal to allocating 38.5 teachers to serve those students and meeting their needs as on-track students. And conversely, if we took the 424, it tells us we should be allocating approximately 13.3 teachers. So to break that even further down, on-track would require 193 sections or class sections, and off-track would require 66.3 sections or 67 sections in the master schedule. So that would be classes, classroom group of kids. So you'll see the proportions on the right there, and there's more. We're going to dig into this later. I'm not going to go too deep into this. We'll be bringing this back again to the board. So I know some of you have seen this. I want to sort it out in a few different ways that I thought was interesting. Off-track data by grade and year. So you look at 16-17, 17-18, 18-19. We see ninth grade was higher off-track. It's starting to stabilize, but it's still low. Still a pretty high percentage, I think. 10th grade, I think 11th grade is the most surprising to me, that by the time they're 11th grade, they're actually a bigger proportion of being off track. There's lots of ways to look at that, and there's probably more digging into this data we need to do. By ethnicity, here's your breakdown. The two groups, Hispanic and African American, are the groups that are the most off track. Just to kind of create urgency, and this is some of the data that kind of supports what we saw at the state of California, and we just wanted to share it with you as we move into the next process. And I know there'll be a lot of questions, but we're going to have a little bit of a discussion and a protocol coming soon. Students in AP class, 16-17, 17-18, 18-19. So kids in AP that are off track in AP is a lower percentage. Kids that are not in AP is a higher percentage of off track. Students in MCA, which is, tends to take some more students that have other challenges, but you still see the percentage of off track in MCA is higher than the general population. This one I think is powerful. Puente is showing that they are able to have actually a better percentage of kids staying on track than they were if they weren't in Puente. Kids that aren't in Puente are definitely not as on track, but some of those elements of Puente should be applied and can be applied without being in the Puente program. And as I've talked with the high school, there's a lot of conversation about how do we Puentify, if you will, and take some of those principles across the board to help more kids be successful. These are deficiencies, and the simple way I would say these are classes that are most frequently failed. This gives you an idea of what those courses are, and typically this is where we would build summer school, enrichment, repeat classes to try to get, these are the kids that are off track, what they're failing in. So I wanted to share this model with you as part of this. And I think one of them is just kind of taking a look from a management standpoint, from a governance standpoint. And it just kind of gives you the elements. And I do have a handout for you that we can share on this one. And I think that's, all those pieces need to be in place to really initiate change. I think some of it's our own self-diagnosis of what can we do to do better? What are the parts we can bring in more strongly? I know we've had an ongoing conversation about metrics and how do we begin to make that happen. But with that, I'm going to stop my data presentation because I want to keep the conversation going with what these ladies have planned. And I'm happy to dig deeper into this later. If board members take notes, I do want to dig deeper into this data at a future date with you. So I'm going to leave it here for you. Okay? Maybe want something to drink. Okay.
Right now, we work together in an activity. It's a fun activity. It's going to take us about 20 minutes. And the purpose So the reason why we are here is to serve a partner in problem solving and finding solutions. We are not here to blame or shame or point fingers at anyone. We are here to strengthen our partnership and work with you for the sake of both children. This time, we would like to have each board member and Superintendent Sanchez to participate in a prioritization protocol that will help you to identify areas of board agreement that you may find useful in beginning to draft a starting point for an action plan that you can later refine and align with your board priorities and goals. And this is very important because this is what our community is waiting for, action plan. So we're gonna have 4 rounds. Round 1, we're gonna do 3 steps. And we're gonna follow in second round and third round the same 3 steps. Step 1 will be each of you will receive an envelope, and I'm gonna pass them. This is for the trustee. This is for Ray.
Do I need to move that?
We have the name for you. Lisa, it's yours. Here's the second. This is yours. It's Nancy. And this is yours. So these are the 3 biggest priorities that came out from all the report and everything, all the comments and feedback from our community. Priority number 1 is the academic achievement of Latinx students. It's the greatest concern. Academics is the greatest. As you can see, the data is really important. Improve communication structures and resources for Latinx students and families. It's very important for our community to improve our communication structure with them. And number 3, all employees might have high-quality customer service and ethic, cultural sensitivity training. So this is, we have given you an envelope. And we have inside, we have action items that is titled, that they go according to the 3 priorities. Step 2, we're gonna have you open the envelope. And we're gonna take a few minutes to review the action items inside the envelope. Number 3, you're gonna read all the action items and we're gonna place them corresponding a year according to when you think it will be make the most sense to begin working on it. So this is round 1. We'll give you the priority number 2 after 5 minutes. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll place them in year 1, 2, and 3, and then we'll do the priority number 3. So we have 5 minutes for you to read the items and place them to what you think, okay? To what you consider it will make the most sense to start working. Either year 1, year 2, or year 3. The round 4 will have some observations and comments. And we'll go through a couple of questions just to get some of the feedback. Okay. So we have 5 minutes. If you have any questions, please let us know.
So we can stand up to the thing.
Yeah.
I believe the audience has these in there.
Yes, and the audience has the list where it says
So that's what we're looking at.
the Latinx Summit priorities. There's 3. There's 1, and it has action steps, and then number 2 and number 3 on the back.
my tongue, I said I shouldn't. But I swear.
As long as we don't put it between the two tables.
No, but that's why we don't get anything done, we gotta prioritize.
Yes. But, my God, I'm not gonna think because you're reading my head.
Trying to influence the votes.
You know, we did a sit in the bar.
We're back
where
with
we
some,
first.
And if you need a couple more minutes, that's okay, because the first one is the longest one, so
The other ones are really
yes.
quick.
The other ones are super fast, yeah.
Year one being this current year that's coming up, right?
Right, right.
That's,
Like now.
yeah.
August.
That's, yeah.
A lot of these are the first year for me. I'm doing it.
Puedes empezar con la So we'll do the count right now, because we're going well on time.
Yeah, once they're done, we'll move. It's gonna be, then there's more time to talk. Hanging chads. Florida.
Nosotros estamos esperando. No, as long as we get
Espera en el cielo.
I get them all. Could we have your open statements put in the record later? Because we're gonna upload it as supplemental. Mr. Sharp. I knew she was gonna ask that.
Yeah, every student has 6 periods, but every teacher has 5. Yeah.
Well, let's wait until we get there.
Okay.
Do you want to collect them and then reset for the next one?
Yes. 6 periods. Yeah, each. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's on both sides. It's fine. Got them?
think Mr. Neal.
Give her up there.
Got it. Okay. So we're gonna do the same thing
Closer.
with number 2. It's not as long as number 1 and number 3 is the short one. I have this for the answer. You can pick up your video.
Recycling.
And this is.
Same thing, right?
Same thing. Yeah, this is not a test or anything like that at all. This
We'll get a
is just-
score later.
Yeah. No, we'll make a count. And then we'll make a count. This is just to start. There's one at a time.
This is something I wanted forever.
There's less in here. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And then the third is left.
We can start, right?
Yeah, we can start. Whenever you're ready. Ready? You have trouble? You want me to help you out? Did you go over there?
No, it's okay, thanks. I'm still worn out from last week. Think your hip, okay, pretty good? Yeah, the same is a lot easier than the knee stuff.
The bullying one, is that meant to be for Latinx specific
Oh, very.
versus
But
general
it's
bullying?
some things overlap, you know, you want to do it district-wide, but it's such an urgency from the parents that we have to put it as a task, that we need to have it done. Did you guys, are all the groups? Look at
We
you.
coordinated, yeah.
You're coordinated. And you-
I even got blue on too. So
Ray, he doesn't dress.
you might have a blue shirt on. Blue.
Wow,
Yes, that's
una camisita, camisota.
They're gonna take. Oh, wait, yeah, we can use them.
And then we'll do priority number 3, same thing. So this is Ms. Wilson. Yes, that's the shortest one.
That's a trick, stand up and then read it as you're putting it in.
Este permiso. No tienes que volver o vas a... Ah, entonces nos vamos por ahí.
Well, we're even on time. You guys need to run workshops more often.
They should. Yeah, you guys should.
You know, I've never, I have to say, when we
Can I put it
were
in?
this group of ladies are commendable. They're hard workers and they put their heart into it.
Wow, we were early on that one.
Even time.
Gold star.
Because I know they're gonna go like, "Hey, it's not done yet." Okay, so. So around 4, it's to ask the board for observations, comments, and we have a couple of questions maybe that can help give us some comments and feedback from you. It's what patterns emerged for you? And the second one, what did you notice of the action items that you read? Is there anything that caught your attention? Is there anything that you're like, oh, I agree with that, totally agree, and that should be year 1, or probably stay with the 3-year period? Something that caught your attention.
Parents, getting a buy-in from the parents, making sure that the communication line is open and that parents feel that they're not the problem, that they're part of the solution. And the more we reach out to parents, especially, it's always easier when they're, elementary, it seems to be easier. But when they seem to get to junior high and high school, where the parents when the kids push the parents away and say, that's probably when we need to focus. Years ago, we visited El Paso School District, which was 98% Latinos. And one of the reasons why they were one of the best in Texas was because of parent involvement.
I noticed the numbers. Priority 1 had the most suggestions and that fit right with the idea that that is the most important priority. Priority 2 had fewer suggestions and priority 3 had the least.
I think it struck me, for me, being a kid whose mom never spoke English, it didn't mean that she wasn't worried about performance, but, I think it's, so not surprised that there were so many idea generations, but to keep that involvement, it's really hard to say, how do I not put communication first? Because if we're not giving them the environment, the comfort to come in and have this engagement, then I can't really engage them along how some other cultures do, right? Because we all know parent engagement is the key. So that's kind of what really strikes me, is that I think we want to be careful not to get so sucked up into of course we got to fix the academic gap, but how do we equally prioritize the communication piece? And not just like a Latinx summit, but like as a part of the day-to-day, right? I'm not saying that I have the answer, but that's the thing that really strikes me.
So in the priority one, we do have a lot of items, so. And most of the items is actually related to priority two, the improvement community, just like what President Rodriguez said, the parent involvement is probably the paramount determinator of district success.
One of the things I noticed is, in talking to both, Latinx parents and just all parents, a lot of the things are the same. I think most parents are worried about most of the things that were brought up here. But I do see that language does seem to be a little bit barrier. And that comfort level, I really am glad to see that, because I've kind of known that mostly, our parents, sometimes they don't come to a meeting not because they don't care, it's because they're working two jobs or they're trying to do something else for their families. I think that just seeing the agreement among parents, outside of just Latino kids, I think that's something that is, I think, kind of to Member Martinez's point, this is really more about all kids kind of need these things.
Yeah, and we need to just not to forget that once we impact in a positive way this community, it's going to totally impact in a bigger picture our district. So it's very, very important.
I noticed that a lot of the academics were at the upper grade level, where they're talking about A to G and off track, on track. But it makes me think that at the lower grade levels, if you do the job at the lower grade levels, those upper grade issues will not be there. So, even though parents didn't concentrate on the lower grade levels, or people at the Latinx didn't concentrate on the lower grade levels, I think we should kind of interpret that data to put more attention at the lower grades.
And we totally agree with that, because in the 4 years that we have worked with the parents at the high school, as parents, we have noticed that most of the things that that it's not working or frustrates the parents, it comes from many years back. So if we could work towards that, it's going to be easier, and they're going to understand more of the system and help the kids. So totally agree.
At the same time, we have to look at the other way around. Some things in the system does not serve well, right? Or, there are so many barriers that no matter how many translators or people you tweak, and this is their barriers that maybe we can look at them and see how much we can change them. So the parents doesn't have to fit the system, but the system embraces the parents. And that's super important in our community. And also the students. All these, really, who has a word? Who has a word that AP classes are better than a solid curriculum that will prepare them to college? I mean, who has the right word? And those are things that confuses students a lot. So we need to also, I'm not in the district, but the district needs to speak with one voice. That's what I'm saying. One voice that is solid and it stays there. I know that students take different paths, but so they know all their options and the real benefits of one to the other. But every student, one size does not fit all. So.
The superintendent and I were at a meeting yesterday, and they gave us a little thing that said visit. And then he and I were talking about the difference between being a visitor and being a guest. And we were thinking something so simple, but yet, instead of being a visitor, I'm a guest, which means that, you want me there, and what you say is important. You're my guest, and that's part of our culture, where people feel, when they come into your home, they feel like they belong there.
you know, they can open the refrigerator anytime they want, take whatever they want. But,
That's you, right?
that's the Puerto Rican thing, right?
But that's a great point, and I mean, it starts with, you know, my kids went to bunker, right? And a ton of Latino kids, and nobody in the office spoke Spanish, right? So we as Latinos, we can see the body language of the parents, the discomfort of going through the door. It pains me. Every time I was there, of course, I would speak up, but it's hard. And you can say, well, they should be learning, and you can say, oh, they should want to, and we recognize, you know, but that's not the reality. That's not reality of the challenges. So Vivian, to your point, you know, how do we bring the system, how do we open the system to them? Because we, you know, it's not something that cultural gap, that language gap cannot be closed in a year or 3, right? So how are we gonna then kind of create the structure? Again, this is very personal to me just because I know, and our kids feel the pressure, because I was the kid whose mom was like, ¿Qué dice? What is he saying? Right? And and then you're worried about, am I saying what my mom wants me to say accurately? The pressure we put on those kids, you know? So I think it is really thinking through, you know, speaking in one voice, I think is really important, but really taking that guest, not just for, you know, Latinos, but, you know, really all parents, but really understanding the need of those groups. Because if we look at our African-American kids, you know, what are the needs that they have? So, you know, really understanding those requirements so that, you know, every front office for all of our schools, you know, can create that feeling of come in and share what's on your mind openly, right? Otherwise, we're never going to get that. How do we help them? So I think that's a great point from a guest perspective.
International language, no words, smile.
Yeah.
You know, just need us to smile and to have.
We have some opportunities.
I've always thought, you know, when you go into school office, the person sitting at the desk should come up to you, stand up, go to the counter.
Feels good.
You know, yeah. Treat
But-
you like a guest. And I think even though that's number 3 priority, I think that's the one of the most important ones to start early.
Eye contact, as simple as eye contact, you know, the phone and the people walking in, needing something, no eye contact.
I have to tell you quick, like a personal experience, because we all think that it's a bad experience, but I was a guest at Newark, a guest speaker, and I was totally terrified. I could have just sneaked in. I know the high school, so, but I said I'm gonna go the proper steps, and I walked in, and I was totally intimidated just to walk. And I would talk to myself, this was your house for almost 20 years. Why are you intimidated? But just I've heard so much about this experience to walk into a school, and then so anyway, so I went in there and very humble, and I said I'm a guest today, and I'm supposed to go to 700 building, and I was shocked. This lady stood up and she said, "Do you know where the 700 building is?" And I said, "Okay, I'm going to put her through the test." And I said, "No, I don't." And then she ran around, got the map, marked it all up, and then he said, "Oh, you need to have a visitor's badge." So she said, "Why don't you go to the computer? Please go to the computer and write your name." Oh my God! And I tell you the truth, that was a barrier for me, because I've been struggling, not going to get my new glasses, and I said, I can't see what is written up there. She came out again, and I said, oh my gosh, this lady needs to do the customer service training. She's the one that needs to do it. and she's an African-American lady. She was very sweet and very accommodating, and let me tell you, I have to say that because we always have the other side of the image. And then she did because I was writing totally weird name, and so she tried, of course it was misspelled, but that was fine. So I put my sticker on and I left, and she sent me my way. Said, if you get lost, see a campus monitor. I mean, she was making sure that everything, I think it was the perfect. So I had to mention it because we always have bad experience, but they're also good experiences.
Well, and the committee will compile the prioritized items, and I don't know if we can email them. Can we email the board, the
You
board
send them
members? Or we can,
to me and the
okay,
board if you
perfect. Send them to you, so
I'll
it can
explain
be
how
sent
to
to
do
the
that.
board. And we'll try to do it fast, probably before the end of the day today, we'll leave them here counted and everything, to be completed. And now we're gonna do I think we're gonna do perfect
I've asked
timing.
Vivian to go to the microphone so it's on the record, so
Yes, please.
she's gonna read your quote. She's got a surprise in her bag.
That's why she's taking it with her.
It's not a surprise.
Magic, it's magic. We need magic.
Is this working or not?
Yes, right.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm going to read a quote to you, and it goes, we cannot seek academic achievement for ourselves. I'm going to restart. We cannot seek achievement for ourselves and forget about progress and prosperity for our community. Our ambitions must be broad enough to include the aspirations and needs of others for their sake and for our own sake. This was said by Cesar Chavez, Mexican-American labor leader and civil rights activist who, with Dolores Huerta, co-founded the United Farm Workers Union in 1962. And his word, he's a leader in our community and a role model, and all his legacy we embraced with passion. Our Latino community believes that this is really a historic time in our district, really. We organized and had the first Latinx Summit, which gave parents a vehicle to speak out. And today, our committee came here to work with you, the elected, appointed members of the board, so we can move forward together for the sake of our children that you serve. I personally, believe that maybe some of the district's minuses, like the fear of declining enrollment, happens to also be one of the greatest opportunities to reshape this district and refocus on the needs of the students that are here today. Newark Unified could become a model for other districts on how to improve the outcomes for the students it serves. It takes a true commitment to serve the students in the district, and we believe you can make a change for the better. It is time to focus on the needs of the students, not the needs of the adults or the district, of the system. We are here to build something that can we all be proud of. We are not here to support a system that is currently not working for our students, and that is the reality of it. We have a small gift for you. It is a small, practical, and symbolic item. That's in Puerto Rico, right? It is a fan made in Mexico, handmade, made out of woven palm tree leaves, and it represents hard work. It's simple, environmentally perfect, that people use for a purpose, to cool off on a hot day. It represents also our culture, which is rich in all kinds of traditions. It represents our people, hardworking, creative, and committed, and successful with the right tools. So every time you use this fan, when it's hot there and you don't have your air on, or you're here in the district, we want you to think of this acronym, a fan, F for families, A for achievement, and N for Newark pride. That's it. Thank you.
That concludes our, the study session
It'll be
presentation.
interesting to see how we rank.
We're gonna do it,
Yes, good.
and I don't know if we can give it to you and maybe before the.
Yeah, we're gonna go into closed session
So
now.
you'll have it ready when you come out. You'll have it ready, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right here, because they're going, you're going
We're
back.
going to the.
They're going to
Oh,
the back.
they're
so we
going.
can-
Okay, stay here.
Okay, do this.
Thank you very
My
much.
own fan.
Yes.
Okay. Let's wait till, I'll stay down here.
Okay.
I'll stay there.
Thank you, everyone. We should have allotted 2 hours, as we do to a lot of our study sessions. So the workshop or the study session, Lennex, before we go to closed session, we need public comment. Does anyone want to approach or have something to share with the board before we go into closed session, where we'll be discussing public employee appointment or employment, conference with labor negotiator, employee organizations, Newark Teachers Association, our classified group, and then also NUMA, unrepresented supervisors and contracted management. And then we're also going to conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, public employee performance evaluation and goals, the superintendent, finishing finally his evaluation, conference with labor negotiator, unrepresented employee superintendent, and then we have expulsion review and to discuss the expulsion. Okay. Would anyone like to approach us on any of these items that we're going to be talking about in closed session? Okay, seeing none, 6:05, go to closed session. Thank you.